everyone, welcome to Kettlebell Basics, episode 1. Today we'll be taking the kettlebell swing and breaking it down into the fundamental movement patterns so that everyone can practice and build the quality of their swing, whether they're an experienced kettlebell student or brand new. So the kettlebell is really broken up into two distinct movements, the hip hinge and a plank. So you want to think about the hinge of your hips, lengthening your hamstrings and your glutes so that they can contract, which would be the gas behind the swing of the kettlebell, and then your core, your abs, and the plank at the top of the swing will be the brakes. So the bell just swings and floats almost weightless at the top of the swing. So what we'll do today is work on the hip hinge pattern, the plank at the top, and then put it together with a little bit of weight. And I'll give you a little bit of an exercise program to do to practice your new movement patterns. All right, so let's get started first with the hip hinge. So for a hip hinge, you want to find something that you can use to give you some tactile feedback. Something as easy as a broom. All right, so anything you have that you can place from your head down through your low back, hockey stick, lacrosse stick, like I said, a broom. If you or your child train martial arts, a bow staff is always great. A piece of PVC pipe. The options are endless. So you want to grab your dowel and you're going to place it at the top of your head, in between your shoulder blades and at your low back, so that my knuckles are against the back of my head and my low back, and the middle of my shoulder blades, that thoracic spine area, is also making contact with your dowel. Having your feet a little bit wider than your hips in a natural turn, external rotation. You don't have to be parallel, just finding that natural opening of the hips. You're going to reach your hips back like you're going to close the car door with your butt because your hands are full, and then come on back up again. So you want to keep 3 points of contact the entire time as you reach back and come forward. So you'll be breathing in as you reach your hips back, exhaling as you bring your hips underneath, keeping weight through your big toe, your little toe, and your heel, so your feet are in contact with the floor. 3 points of contact, back of your head, low back, and thoracic spine. Now we're going to discuss the plank. So the plank at the top of your swing is a solid, controlled position. You want to think about you're bracing your core, shielding your core, your ribs are closed, and you are sealing your body from the back to the front. So that whole corset, 360 degrees of core contraction, will be the plank at the top of your kettlebell swing. So when we practice that on the floor, you want to think about your plank being a bridge. There's linkage and then there's leakage. So you want to try to link everything together and be mindful of where those leaks are. So you want to think about driving your fists and your forearms through to your elbows into the mat. You want to think about engaging your glutes so that you're thinking of pulling your kneecaps all the way up to your pelvis. You want to squeeze your glutes. You want to have that core contraction so that you have a nice hollowed position. You don't want anything to sag, and you want your shoulder blades to be pulled back and down so they're rotating and pulling down. You can also think about trying to bring your elbows to your toes and your toes to your elbows as you're creating that tension within your core. So all of these little thoughts and pictures and analogies should be going through your mind kind of like a systematic checklist as you're holding your plank, all with a nice strong exhale as you're almost milking your body, getting the air out, holding that contraction. So that's how we want to do our planks. It's called a hard style plank. We'll take a nice breath, we'll get into our plank position, and we'll hold that until we've emptied all the air out of our lungs. When we do our plank, forearms are down underneath of our shoulders. Our elbows are right underneath of our shoulders. We're going to step back with our feet. The closer your feet are together, the harder it is. So you want to find a nice position there. You want to think about scooping your pelvis. So someone took a ice cream scoop and just scooped out your insides. You're squeezing your quads, pulling your kneecaps up to your pelvis. You're squeezing your glutes. You're engaging your core. Your shoulder blades are pulled back and down. Feel your lats engage as you try to pull your elbows to your toes and your toes to your elbows. You're going to take a nice deep breath and then exhale. And relax. Okay, so let's put that all together. We have our hip hinge that we can practice, and we have our planks that we can practice. Now, the next step would be the actual hip hinge with a little bit of weight. So we'll be deadlifting essentially. You can use a kettlebell for this. You can use a dumbbell for this. You can use, I have a couple extra other things over here. I have a little footstool that I'll show you how I use, and then a makeshift kettlebell, which is just a tote bag with some towels and some household things in there, a couple pairs of shoes, things to just weight it. So it's not just me moving against gravity, it's me moving against gravity with some resistance. So let's say we'll start with this little footstool ottoman. So I'll put it in front of me, and I want my feet wide enough so that I'm on either side of whatever I choose to deadlift. The back of the ottoman is kind of at the insteps of my arches, so that way I don't have to reach too far ahead for it. I'm going to take my hands, and I'm going to put them right in the crease of my hips. And I'm going to use that to initiate the bend so that I know it's coming from my hips and not my low back. So I'm reaching my hips back. I can put my hands straight down and I can feel the abdomen. I need to get a little bit lower so I can get a good grip on it. My hands are on either side. I'm going to squeeze my glutes to initiate the hip extension, and I come right up. I push my hips back and the abdomen returns back where it started. Up, tight core at the top, the plank that we just practiced, pushing my hips back into the hinge we had practiced before. Plank, hinge, plank, and hinge. Okay, if I want to make that a little bit more difficult, I can use my makeshift kettlebell. It's a little bit heavier than my ottoman. So what I'll do here is I'll put the bag between my feet, right? So the middle of the bag is at the instep of my arch. Again, I'm going to take my hands, karate chop my hips, push my hips back, grab the sides of the bag, and I'm going to stand up and plank. Push my hips back into a hinge, engage my glutes, and stop at the plank. Hinge, plank, hinge, plank, and the breath would be inhale on the hinge, exhale on the plank. Inhale, hinge, exhale. Okay, so the exhale is a quicker burst of air because you are bracing your core as if you were bracing for a punch. Okay, the next upgrade would be a kettlebell or a dumbbell. So if I have my kettlebell between my feet, again, the horns of the kettlebell will be right at the instep of my arch. I have my big toe, my little toe, and my heel sealed into the mat, so I know I have a good foundation. I'm going to take my hands, karate chop my hips, press my hips back, getting to a nice deep hinge. I can find the horns of my bell. I'm going to take up any slack I'd have in my arms, so my shoulder blades are back and down, my lats are engaged. I'm going to squeeze my glutes to extend my hips, and I'm going to end in a plank at the top. Then I'm going to press my hips back until the bell touches the floor, and extend. Hinge, plank, hinge, plank, hinge, plank, hinge, let go of the bell, and stand up. So you have 3 variations on the deadlift, bringing together the hinge and the plank to get you ready for the next step of the kettlebell swing. All right, so we've done our hinge, we've done our plank, and we've done our deadlift. So the next step is the breath and the dynamic movement that you need to create the arc of the swing. So if you think about it, the deadlift is just a linear movement up and down. With the kettlebell swing, the bell, instead of traveling up and down, travels on an arc. Okay, it hikes high into the hips, comes through the legs, floats at the top at about chest height, and then returns back down again to swing high through the hips. So the breath is a great initiator to create the fluidity of that movement. So we're just going to do the movement pattern with the breath. So we'll be inhaling on the hinge, just like we did with the deadlift, exhaling for the plank at the top, only now we're going to use our arms to create the swinging, arcing motion. So what we'll do, we'll start with our hands out in front. Our legs again are hip width apart. Big toe, little toe, heel pressed into the mat. I'm going to bend at the hips for my hinge. And as I do that, I'm going to brush past my legs, physically touching them, so that it's my cue, that's my cue to bend. So we're taking out the karate chop and we're making it a little bit more dynamic. So hands are out, you'll breathe in and exhale. So we'll hinge, plank, hinge, plank, with the breath. Baron, go lay down, bud. Come on, come in, over here. Good boy. Breathing in and exhale. Breathing in, exhale. Breathing in, exhale. Okay, so that's your kettlebell swing. Movement, hinging, planking, and breathing. Okay, that's a really great place to start. Once you feel comfortable with that, then we can start to add weight. So same thing, I wouldn't be swinging my ottoman right now. This is where the tote bag comes in handy. We'll start with that, as long as it's okay with my dog. All right, so I'm gonna get my tote bag. I'm gonna put it on the floor in front of me, okay? So we have to create a back swing that we don't have in our deadlift. So that's why the bell or the tote bag doesn't start directly underneath of our feet. Go ahead, Bear. Nobody can see. So in order to get the back swing, we have to have the bell or the bag start a little bit in front of us. I'm gonna have my big toe, little toe, heel sealed into the mat. I can take my hands, karate chop my hips back, so I'm starting in a nice hinge. I'm gonna grab the handles of the tote bag and I'm gonna tilt the bag back towards me. So I'm sharing weight with the bag, and there's not a lot of weight here. It's really just a towel, an extension cord, a tablecloth, and a pair of my husband's shoes. So it's not like I'm swinging an enormous amount of weight, and it's nowhere near the same the equal, doesn't equal my body weight, but I can still tilt it back and share some weight. I don't want to be on top of it. I don't want to fall forward. Okay, so I have the bag tilted back. I'm going to take my shoulder blades and pull them down like I'm trying to pull them into my back pockets. From here, my back is straight, my core is engaged, my hips are back, my hamstrings are lengthened, and I'm just going to use my arms to pull the bag high into my hips like I'm hiking it like I'm a football center. And now I'm just put it back down again. Hike and down. So see how it's not my back at all, it's really my arms. My back shouldn't change, it's all my lats. Same breathing pattern, okay? Once you get those down, then we'll add the plank, okay? So you'll hike the bag back into your hips, and then right away, snap your hips forward into your plank. I'm used to heavier weight. So yep, I lost my balance there. Happens to the best of us, don't worry about it. Let's try again. One more time. So the reason, teachable moment here, the reason I'm losing my balance backwards is because I'm giving the swing too much gas. I am engaging my hip extensors so fiercely that my core muscles aren't able to stop the acceleration, so I'm falling backwards. All right, so if this is happening to you, usually it means that your glutes are a little bit stronger than your core. So it doesn't mean you need a heavier weight. It means this gives you an opportunity to work on your core. Finding the front and the back of your strength. Okay, so let's try this again. And then when I finish, I park the bag and I stand back up. So my third or fourth try, I was able to tame the arc of the tote bag. Remember with kettlebell training, it's not the bell that does the work, it's you. So you're the machine. You are the one generating all the power. You are creating the acceleration and the deceleration, which is why kettlebell training is really great for everyone, but really for fighters, so that you can get that burst of energy, control, and then control the descent as well. So the strike and the recoil, keeping you balanced, keeping your feet light so you can move around and do whatever you need to do in a fighting scenario. So let's put a bell in instead of the tote bag so you guys can see how it would progress. All right, so I have my bell here, and I'm going to put it in between my feet. So the horns of the bell, actually I'm not because I'm swinging. I'm going to put it in front of my feet, in the middle of, right in front of my pelvis. I have my big toe, little toe, and heel sealed into the mat. I'm going to take my hands, karate chop my hips back. I'm going to grab the horn of the bell, pull it back. Bring my shoulder blades back and down so they're in my back pockets. I'm going to hike the bell high into my hip, and then as soon as the bell is high in my hips, I'm going to quickly engage my glutes and plank at the top to stop the bell, and you'll see a little bit of a float before it continues back down to my hips. And then I park the bell safely and stand up. Okay. So that's the anatomy of a kettlebell swing, broken down through the functional patterns. as you can tell, it truly is a full body exercise. So we're swinging, but our legs are engaged, our core is engaged, our arms are engaged, shoulder blades are huge. So the kettlebell swing not only works your cardiovascular conditioning, it works your fast twitch muscles, that quick hip extension. It also, if you do an extended amount of them, then you start to get into that slow twitch, muscle fiber. So in general, I would say the kettlebell swing is the best exercise movement pattern that you can do for the longevity of whatever you train, in whether you're training or whether you're just, living your life. So programs that you can do. So my suggestion for you guys would be to set up with your dowel, which could be your broom, your hockey stick, your lacrosse stick, your bow staff, your PVC pipe, whatever you want to use as your dowel. I would say do 6 hip hinges, then do 6 hard style planks, so taking that breath in and then holding the plank for the exhale, and then 6 deadlifts. Okay, and I would repeat that 4 to 6 times just to get the flow of the movement pattern. If you feel like you're able to do the kettlebell swing, I would start with a lightly weighted tote bag, backpack, or handbag, just so you could get the float, you can get that movement pattern, and then you could move on from there. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to reach out to me, take video, send it to me, I can help critique it. But that is your Kettlebell Basics lesson of the day, the anatomy of a kettlebell swing. Thanks guys, see you soon.